Welcome, everyone, to the 23rd Annual Library of Congress National Book Festival, a place where everyone has a story. At this time, we ask you to turn off or silence your phones. Behind you, over your left shoulder, is the closest restroom to the LOC Pavilion. We also want to notify you that this event is being recorded, and your entry and presence at this program constitutes your consent to being filmed or otherwise recorded. Thank you for joining us today. Our first presenter is Lauren Alge, Community Manager for By the People, a crowdsourcing program that invites the public to transcribe and digitized Library of Congress documents and collections online at crowd.loc.gov. She will talk about how transcribers impact research at the Library of Congress and how you can get involved. Lauren?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you all for coming here. 9:30 crowd. Wow. I'm impressed. Hi, as mentioned, I'm Lauren Alge, and I'm a community manager for By the People, which is a crowdsourcing program that invites anybody to become a virtual volunteer with the library, transcribing historical documents from our collections. So I'm going to talk about how By the People works, volunteers' incredible impact on the collections access, research, and scholarship at the library, and as Elizabeth said, how you can get involved. So By the People is a virtual volunteering program. Anyone can visit our website and contribute to library collections by transcribing handwritten but also typed materials from our collections that can't be automatically transcribed by software. So volunteers also review the transcriptions of other volunteers. So that's a really important part of the process to close the loop to get materials completed and back onto our website. You choose what looks interesting to you, how much you want to do, what you want to do, when. Transcribing text from these pages of historic letters, diaries, and more from across the vast and varied collections of the library increases your own knowledge, that of the library, and researchers of the future. Each page transcribed and reviewed by volunteers makes those materials more discoverable, more accessible, and open to emerging forms of research. So how does it work? Oops, I'm not moving. I'm so sorry. This is our transcription interface. So this is showing a draft of the Walt Whitman poem, Ashes of Roses. Transcriptions are completed through a consensus process. It takes at least one volunteer to transcribe a page and another volunteer to review it. So more complicated transcriptions may go back and forth through that review process a few times before something is marked complete. We like to think of this process as a safety net to let you try something, make mistakes, and learn from them, knowing that somebody else is coming behind you. Staff does also do a small amount of QA on completed transcriptions, spot checking them, and using analysis to make sure our transcriptions are good before coming back to the library's website. Anyone can transcribe without an account, but registered users can track your work, and you can also then be a reviewer and tag pages with keywords. In the peer review process, you check another volunteer's transcription to make sure it's whole and complete. If it's not, then you can reopen it for editing, and then it'll go back through that review process again. Review is the final step before something is considered available for research on the library's website. There are no assignments. You're free to explore to a page that looks interesting to you, work at your own pace. We have this find a new page button at the top of every page, and we encourage you to use it liberally. You know, if something doesn't look like it's your speed, doesn't look right, find something else. We have so much from across the library's vast treasures. All right. Sorry, my notes are not moving. Here we go. After transcriptions are complete, we work closely with our colleagues to return the text to our main digital collections website, loc.gov. There they're published alongside the original image. So this is a completed transcription. You can see that there's a credit at the bottom of every page saying that it was completed by the People volunteers. To date, we've brought nearly 200,000 pages back into loc.gov that were completed by our volunteers. This makes the transcriptions keyword searchable, and it helps users of all abilities to read the transcription, but it's also amenable to technology like screen readers to make those pages accessible to folks who otherwise couldn't view the text in an image. So this is one of our favorite examples of a completed transcription. This is Rosa Parks' pancake recipe. The Rosa Parks papers were one of our first that we transcribed in By the People. And if you searched for peanut butter on the library's website, before we transcribed this page, you would never get to this. It's not part of the metadata. It's not part of the title of the item. But now when you search for peanut butter, you'll find it because it's right here in the ingredients as part of the transcription. So this is one of our favorite examples. And it's a little bit fun, but you can think of also what this does for names, what it does for places and other keywords within rich collections at the Library of Congress. Also, if you're interested in trying this to make this at home, I have postcards of this recipe over at the By the People table, just right over there. So come get one after this. So the collections included in our campaigns reflect the depth and diversity of the Library of Congress. Our subjects have ranged from the papers of Abraham Lincoln and Rosa Parks to the lyrics of women's suffrage songs. We're always looking for new and different collections to add to reflect, again, the broad range of collections at the Library of Congress. We can transcribe anything that's been digitized and available on loc.gov. So if you have any ideas of things that you would like to transcribe, let us know. Right now, we have available pages from poet Walt Whitman, President Theodore Roosevelt's correspondence, the files of humanitarian Clara Barton, landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted, who designed the Capitol grounds as well as Central Park and many other parks around the U.S., philosopher Hannah Arendt, who escaped the Holocaust and then wrote about the Nuremberg trials really famously. Civil War Judge Joseph Holt, who presided over the trial of the Lincoln assassination conspirators. 16th century Spanish legal documents. They're actually from the 14th to 17th century. So if you have Spanish skills, please jump into Herencia, which is that campaign. We also have the AFL records, so records of labor history at really pivotal points in the early labor movement. Coming soon, this is a special preview of what's coming up. In September, we're going to be launching sheet music of the musical theater. As I mentioned, we did suffrage sheet music a couple years ago, which was incredibly successful. This is going to be our biggest campaign ever from the music division. We're really excited about it. Musical theater from the late 19th century through the 1920s. We're also going to be launching the writings of Leonard Bernstein in November, so look for that later this fall. And finally, we're going to be launching the papers of Frederick Douglass, his correspondence, in February for Douglass Day, which is an event that happens every year. We're super excited about that as well. We're always adding new collections. Sign up for our newsletter if you'd like to know what's coming down the pipe. So By the People has two equally important goals. I've talked a little bit about collection enhancement, but user engagement is equally important. I just demonstrated how transcriptions improve discovery within our collections with the Rosa Parks pancake example, but transcriptions also aid accessibility. They make it easier for everybody to read handwritten, blurry, or dense documents and create text that can be used by screen readers and other accessibility tools. Finally, transcriptions turn the document's text into data that can power computational research like digital humanities projects such as mapping names, creating network analysis, doing textual analysis on what types of words are used within the collections. So By the People's impact on the collections can't be disentangled, though, from the impact on our volunteers. Our volunteers tell us that the real-world impact is what makes this really powerful and meaningful to them. And our two goals are intertwined and mutually reinforcing. By centering our user needs, we're actually ensuring that we're meeting our collection goals as well. So some examples of that real-world impact are what I'm going to talk about next. And over the past 2 years, we've been gathering data on how transcribing affects collections, researchers, and our volunteers. I didn't move the slide again. And so I'd like to share some of those findings with you now in the next few slides. So here's a quick by-the-numbers view of what our volunteers have accomplished in just 5 years. Nearly 700,000 pages have been completed by our volunteers, and as I mentioned, 200,000 of those are now back in loc.gov. We've been making really great headway on bringing those back into our systems. We wait until an entire campaign or entire section of it is completed before we bring it back, so that's why there's a little bit of a gap there. We have over 35,000 registered volunteers and an unknown number of volunteers who transcribe anonymously without creating accounts, and we've now published 14 full text data sets of completed campaigns. So those are what we think are really useful for computational use, like I was just talking about. An anticipated goal that I mentioned is that we've always wanted to create computational text that's accessible to screen readers, and we hope transcriptions would open these pages that are just text within images to users of screen readers. So we recently partnered with the library's web accessibility team last year for a formal evaluation of how well we're doing. And the great news is that our transcriptions can be successfully read by screen readers. We now have data on that, so we're really excited to share that with you. We did find that there is some friction in accessing the transcriptions within loc.gov, and so as a result, of our work, we're also creating tickets to improve that experience as well, so that users not just of the transcriptions but of all online text on loc.gov are going to have a better experience of the text. So that's just another impact of this program. We also wanted to know how successful we've been at aiding search on loc.gov. Again, that's always been a stated goal. We know that we create keyword search, but what does that really mean for people using the collections? So we looked at web analytics data to answer some specific questions. Do transcriptions drive increased web traffic to collections? And yes, for most collections with transcriptions, we see an increase in web traffic after transcriptions were added. In the Clara Barton papers, for example, we compared a portion of the collection that was transcribed to a portion of the collection that was not transcribed, and we saw almost double the web traffic to the portions of the collections that did have transcription. So that's twice as many people who are able to find materials in the Barton papers by searching on our website because of the transcriptions. Secondly, do transcriptions result in a higher number of successful searches on loc.gov? And yes, across the board, we do see that the number of search results on loc.gov that led users into our transcribed collections has gone up. So for 2 collections, the Branch Rickey papers, which is baseball scouting reports, if anybody participated in that campaign, it was super, super fun. And the Carrie Chapman Catt papers of suffragist Carrie Chapman Catt, we looked at which search terms we could attribute to transcriptions alone. So you can see how we were coding all these search terms that we got from our web analytics. Is this something that was in the collection description, the metadata, or is it something that was only in transcriptions? And we saw that of the 37 terms used to find the Rickey collection and 44% of the terms leading to the Catt collections, those search terms that got people there were only in the transcriptions. So that's the impact that volunteers are having on research. So now that we know that researchers are finding and using transcriptions, what are they doing with them? We've started to, every time we hear about an example of somebody using the transcriptions, we're now capturing that data. We're trying, if possible, to interview them. If you know of anybody using transcription data, let us know. We would love to talk to them. So here are some of the case studies that we've seen so far. A historian used Lincoln transcriptions to find African-American correspondence with the president to include in a book he published of letters to Abraham Lincoln from African-Americans. A PhD student used the transcriptions to find references to Haitian work songs in the field notes of Alan Lomax so that she could then easily locate those recordings and listen to the actual songs using those field notebooks. An English professor used transcriptions as a building block for an edited volume of essays that were written by wounded Union soldiers. If you're not familiar with the William Bourne collection, these are soldiers who lost their primary arm in the Civil War and then had to train themselves to write with their other hand. And this is a left-handed penmanship contest that they participated in to show that they were still useful members of society. So that's the collected edition that she put together using our transcriptions of those soldiers' writings. An author also used transcriptions to more easily read the handwriting of suffragist Lucy Stone for a children's book that's going to be coming out pretty soon. Finally, we know that undergraduate students have used Rosa Parks' data set as a basis for mapping the contacts listed in her address books, and they also used sentiment analysis on those baseball scouting reports that I talked about. If you know Branch Rickey, you know that he was a bit of a curmudgeon, so how often was he positive, how often was he negative when he was evaluating? As a hint, he was often saying positive things sarcastically. But they were doing that analysis to try to figure out what his reports were saying about these potential players. Finally, we know that Library of Congress collection staff use our transcriptions all the time to help them respond to patron requests and do their own research for exhibits, blog posts, articles, and more for the Library of Congress. So we're also very interested in the effect. Oh, my image is gone. Well, I'll tell you all about it. We're very interested in the effect that transcribing has on our volunteers. We conducted a major survey in 2021 and asked our volunteers to comment on what motivated them to participate and what impacts they've experienced by being a volunteer with By the People, and as well as what materials they'd like to see in future campaigns. So the 3 motivating factors, which you're not seeing here, are making collections accessible, giving back to the public good, and an interest in the topics, time periods, or people featured in the campaigns. But we also asked volunteers what they gained as a result of participating in our crowdsourced transcription. Chief among these were things like a sense of accomplishment or purpose, new knowledge or perspective on history or current events, a new skill or ability, a greater sense of well-being. Many volunteers told us during the extended lockdowns of early COVID that this is something that gave them a positive outlet, gave them a purpose to get up every day, and it really gave structure to their lives. So, all that said, how can you be a part of all this amazing impact on the Library of Congress? There's 3 different ways that I'm going to outline. The first might be a little bit obvious. It's transcription. The second is service. And the third is research. So let's talk through those. I've already talked about how transcription how it works and the impact of our volunteers, but transcription comes in many forms. So anybody is welcome to transcribe and participate individually as a solo activity. But we've also seen a lot of people turning it into a community event. We empower schools, libraries, book clubs, or any other community group to host their own transcribe-a-thons. We have, where are all my images? Well, I'm just gonna have to really illustrate this for you guys with my words. So if you go to our website, under resources, we have an incredible Transcribe-a-thon guide. It's a PDF that tells you how to set up a Transcribe-a-thon, activities that you might want to do. We also have a PowerPoint for you to use. You don't even have to make your own. And this is a way to create a connection between the Library of Congress as well as in students, patrons, and friends. Talking about the photos that you see here. There's some amazing photos of our transcribe-a-thons that people have tweeted at us, have shared of them doing at their university library, their public library, in classrooms. If you host a transcribe-a-thon, let us know. We would love to see your images. We would love to share them. So please tag us. Some of our biggest ambassadors are educators, and from middle school through college, they tell us that transcription helps students to build skills in interpreting primary sources, and that students really care, again, that this is real world. This isn't just another assignment that goes in a drawer. It goes back into the library's collections to aid other researchers of the future. And based on their feedback, we also have a For Educators page on our website that has helpful ideas about how you might use this in a classroom, how you might integrate it into curriculum, and how to get students started. So another way that you can connect to your community is through service opportunities. We've heard from, again, a lot of students who use By the People for community service, as well as adults who use it for community service, who use it for pro bono hours in law practice. Businesses who want team building exercises have done it. So this is a big area of growth, especially since 2020. It provides a really easy virtual activity to bring people together. If you register for an account on our site, which only requires an active email address, no other information, then you can track your transcriptions. You can track what pages you've worked on in the last 6 months, and also track the number of contributions that you've made. We also have a downloadable service letter from your profile page. You can download a letter on Library of Congress letterhead that says when you registered and how many actions you've taken. So this is really useful if you're doing this for service, as a student, or for any other reason. We've also heard from a student volunteer, Julie, who started a transcribing club at Youngstown State University for students to help build virtual community during 2020. But the club has continued since then. They meet every week, and since they started in 2020, they've completed over 20,000 pages and 2,000 hours of service. And not only have they contributed back to the library, but the club has helped the students from across all majors experience so many benefits, from meeting new friends, to practicing language skills, to getting a new perspective on historical events, and building their own leadership and organizational skills by managing the club itself. And they've also partnered with students at another school to host a joint transcribing club event. So we love to see that. Again, let us know how you're transcribing. Let us know what you're doing with it. We want to hear about these examples, and we want to share them out as ideas for other people to take on. This is what the letter looks like. All right, so let me go back and see if I can also show you. Okay, so this is where the Transcribe-a-thon information is. It's all on our resources page. Here's some beautiful Transcribe-a-thons in action. This is, again, the service learning letter. You can download it from your profile page. Here's an article about Julie and her amazing club. So another way that you can contribute is by using the transcriptions. So you can be a researcher. we want our volunteers to not only to contribute to future researchers, but to become them themselves. So I'm going to quickly talk through how you can actually use the transcriptions, how you can find them when you're doing research at the library. So you can keyword search across everything on lock.gov or just specifically within one collection. So right now, searching across everything, I can change it to this collection if I'm in the Rosa Parks papers already or in a different collection. Once you search using that search bar, you'll see your search results come up with facets that include online format. Online text is what transcriptions are called on lock.gov. So if you're looking for something that has transcriptions, make sure you have online text selected. Once you select things with online text, you'll see view images with text. So that's the way to get to any pages that have had a search result come through based on the transcriptions that are on that page. Once you get to an item with transcription, again, this is what that looks like. You can toggle between just a digitized image and showing the transcription by using this image with text toggle up here in the corner to make the transcription appear. You can download the text of a transcription from the download button, or you can download the image. But you can also transcribe, not just for this page, but all text for the entire item. So that could be a multi-page document. It could also be an entire folder, depending on how the collection is structured. I mentioned that we're also now publishing data sets from our transcriptions. So we published 14, and we're going to continue doing that for all fully completed transcriptions that we're ready to retire the campaign. This is what that looks like. A data set sounds very fancy. It's a really nice spreadsheet is what our data set is. So you can use this, again, for computational research. You can use it for digital humanities projects, but you can also use it just for more simplified searching. You can download the CSV spreadsheet, and then you can do a Control F across the entire collection, which sometimes can be a more straightforward way of searching than going through lock.gov, frankly. So you can see all of our data sets in the selected data sets collection on lock.gov. You can also get to them from any campaign. We'll link you into lock.gov, both to find the data set or to find the transcriptions. So I just want to share a few more volunteer stories, because research doesn't have to mean being a historian and writing a book. Those are examples I already talked about, and those are really great. But there's other ways of connecting to our collections. Transcribing can really be a starting point for exploration, and our volunteers have frequently told us about their connections with the collections, and we're gathering those stories as well. So one volunteer who worked on folklorist Alan Lomax's field notebooks would transcribe notes about particular songs that he recorded, and then they would look up those recordings and listen to them as they were transcribing. Several volunteers who transcribed Walt Whitman's notebooks, those notebooks recorded the soldiers that he cared for in DC hospitals when he was a nurse during the Civil War. They noted those names and then connected to ancestors of those people on genealogy websites to let them know that their ancestor had been cared for by Walt Whitman during the Civil War. Another volunteer who was transcribing thousands of pages of Clara Barton, she wrote mini biography of some of Barton's closest friends and correspondents, which we then passed along to our curator of the Barton collection, and have actually been incredibly valuable to her to get these detailed summaries of these people's lives within the Barton collections. So it's very common for volunteers to tell us about this kind of extra research. We often actually get emails from volunteers saying, is it okay if I do extra research? Is that all right? Is that cheating? It's like, no, please, please. Dig around, explore. That's the point. It's not just about generating data, seeing how many transcriptions we can get. It's about you connecting to the collections and then sharing that back with other people, with us here at the library. So volunteers aren't just contributing to future researchers, they are users and ambassadors for Library of Congress materials, and I hope that if any of you are already volunteers, I hope you feel that way, that we consider you to be part of the Library of Congress, we consider you to be ambassadors for us and for these collections. So I'm going to close with a quote that we got from a volunteer when we did that user survey back in 2021. We read many quotes like these, and they really just make my heart sing. Most meaningful is the feeling that I'm contributing to something much bigger than myself. It makes By the People seem more real to me. It connects me to other Americans looking for shared meaning in our history, and it shows me that this country is a work in progress, which is a good thing. So By the People tells anyone that they can be a part of the Library of Congress. We invite them to dive into the treasure chest and to open the door even more widely for those people who are going to come after them. So, that's all I have. Now that you know all about By the People, all about the impact it has, I hope that you'll try it out at crowd.loc.gov. As I mentioned, we have a table just right there. Come grab some postcards. We have pens, we have bookmarks, and we would love to talk to you more about By the People. We also have a station set up. You can try it out yourself if you haven't before. But that's my time. Oh, and also please follow us on Twitter if you're there still. Sign up for our newsletter. It comes out about every 2 weeks to let you know what campaigns we have going on and anything new coming down the pipe. We do regular challenges around specific activities, and we would just love to hear from you. Send us an email anytime. Thank you so much. And I think we have a little time for questions, if anybody has any questions. How do we know that multiple people aren't working on the same page? The way that the software is set up, if you go to a page that somebody else is already working on, you'll get a notice saying somebody else is already here, please find another page, and you won't be able to save anything. So it's set up so that you can't get into conflict with somebody else. We don't want you wasting your effort. We want you going to a fresh page. So yeah, it avoids that. Is there an age requirement? We do not have a formal age requirement. I think that the library's comment policy, which we fall under, I believe, says 13 to comment. Is that right? But we've heard from kids as young as elementary school doing this, often in tandem with an adult who's helping them along. But we do not have a specific age requirement to just visit the website. Yeah.
Is there any training program or whatever for transcribers for technical matters such as paragraphing or lining or misspelling?
Yes. There is a big section at the top of our website, How To, that has a welcome guide on it about how to get started. It has all of our transcription rules, which there aren't that many. It's mostly transcribe what you see, preserve what's there. But it also has edge cases. What happens if you come across a table? What happens if something's crossed out? All of that is there under How To. And actually this coming year, we're working on a more interactive tutorial, which we're really excited about. So that'll be coming out probably in 6 months or so. But you can get yourself started now. It's all self-guided orientation on the rules that are there. Sometimes people like to print those out, have them with them as they transcribe. Up to you.
Are the pages to transcribe, are they organized by like collection? Like if you wanted to look at a specific kind of page?
Yes. So our Wi-Fi is not amazing, so I'm not going to try and pull it up. But when you go to our website, you'll see a listing campaigns. That'll have everything listed under that we have available. Campaigns roughly correspond to collections. Sometimes we bring a few things together under a campaign. So recently we did a Women of the Civil War campaign that brought together a few different collections from the manuscript division. But most of those campaigns correspond to specific collections. I think we have about 10 different campaigns right now. So those ones I was listing off, Walt Whitman, Clara Barton. So you choose what you're interested in. Within those campaigns, it's also broken down into buckets we call projects. So maybe just correspondence, maybe they're subject files. Sometimes those are broken down by date, so you can explore and hopefully find the thing that you're most interested in. People often ask, I want to be able to search for this thing I'm interested in and transcribe it. Well, that's why we need it transcribed. We can't search on them yet. That's why we need the transcriptions. But we do have, the collection information that's created by the divisions as they organize them for research. So they're broken down that way. Anyone else? We've still got a few minutes, I believe.
How long do your campaigns last for?
How long do they last? That's a great question. We've had campaigns that only lasted 3 days. We have campaigns that have lasted for 5 years. They range enormously, both in their size. So I just mentioned we're about to launch our biggest campaign ever, which is 100,000 pages. We've had some as few hundred pages. but they also range in difficulty. And so all of that goes into how long something is going to last. Our longest running campaign is Herencia, which is Spanish legal documents from the 14th century, 17th century. So they're our oldest materials. They're not in English. And so they're taking a lot longer to get completed, but there's also super dedicated volunteers in Herencia working on them every day. So it really depends. George O'Keeffe went really, really fast. Rosa Parks went really fast. We did a civil rights petition earlier this year that was really small but super interesting, and that went really quickly too. So it just depends on sort of the difficulty level, the size overall of the campaign, as to how quickly they go. Okay. One more question here.
So how do you decide about the campaigns?
Right. How do we
then
decide what to launch?
Did you say you can also suggest a campaign?
Yes, we always want to hear suggestions of campaigns. So there's a few different criteria. It has to already be digitized. Although if you have something you're interested in, we can also then talk to the division and say, we have a lot of interest in this. Do you think we could get it digitized? So it has to be digitized. It has to be free of intellectual property issues, which it generally is already if it's getting published on our website. So that's part of why we don't have that many 20th century materials. Things after the late 1920s fall under copyright in many cases. And it has to not be amenable to OCR, which is the automatic text extraction that works really well on modern print collections. So you will see typed collections by the people. Generally, it's really blurry things on onion skin paper or that are carbon copied or just can't give us good results running through OCR by themselves. Those are the real requirements. Then we work with our collection divisions to find things that they think are especially engaging, things that they think would really benefit from transcription. Sometimes those are really popular collections already, and sometimes those are collections that maybe don't get the research use that the curators think they could, because if they were transcribed, it'd be a lot easier for people to know about them and find things. So it really depends. But we also try to have a mix of types of materials, time periods, types of stories, type of people being represented. But we are, beholden to some, what is already in the library's collections, what's already digitized. But we love to hear what you're interested in seeing more of. And I hope you have a great book fest. Enjoy.